power chords are chords made of a root and a fifth. And usually they're used in heavy metal music because they are powerful. Not today. We're going to create some beautiful landscapes using just a couple shapes. The power chord shape in a non-conventional way, and that's coming up. Hi, my name is David Wallman. Welcome to this channel, which is all about helping guitar players like you find your voice on the instruments, develop it to tell your own personal musical story. And today we're looking at power chords. Power chords are very basic chords made of two notes, a root, which is the foundation, and the fifth, which is an interval. And those two notes together create something powerful. And that's why they're used in heavy metal most of the time and heavier forms of music. Today we're going to use a clean tone, and we're going to play that power chord in multiple areas of the fretboard, measured in relation to something else, a bass. So in essence, we'll have three different tones. We'll have the power chord and something else going on there, creating triads, three-note chords, with only two different shapes. And we're going to use some open strings to take care of the bass. Grab your guitar. This is going to be interactive. We're going to explore different things on this and see what we can come up with. And let's get to the close-up. Before we start exploring and create all those beautiful musical landscapes, like I was playing in the intro, we need a little bit of background story. This is going to be a little theory focused. So if you're not there yet, try to follow along. We're going to get into the exploration phase, but this is for those of you who know your modes and know how they work. We're going to talk about the church modes: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. Did I forget any? 7? Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. Sorry, it's been a long day. If we look at these modes, these 7 different scales, they follow each other, but even more importantly, they all have their unique and individual formula. A scale formula is what creates that scale. It's what differentiates this scale from this one. That's the formula. And a formula is basically a series of numbers, a series of intervals that gives you the fingerprint of the scale. And if we look at the fingerprint of these 7 different church modes, we will see that each one of them has a perfect fifth, except for the Locrian mode, which has a diminished fifth. That means that we find within the 7 modes 6 perfect fifths. That's what we're going to use. This is what makes this work in a safe way. It's a very safe approach. So now, that being said, this means that we can use those perfect fifths in the order of appearance of the modes. The order of appearance of modes, it does a big circle. You can start from wherever you want within the circle, but basically the order is Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian, Ionian, Dorian, and so forth. There's a big circle. Now, if we replace those modes with perfect fifths, we'd have perfect fifth for Ionian, perfect fifth, Dorian, perfect fifth, Phrygian, perfect fifth, Lydian, perfect fifth, Mixolydian, perfect fifth, Aeolian, not perfect fifth, Locrian. It's the not that you want to avoid here. Okay, now let me give you 2 shapes for those power chords, a root and a fifth. Those 2 shapes exist because of the tuning of the guitar. The tuning of the guitar is a little off between strings 3 and 2. Instead of having a perfect fourth, we have a major third. That means that anytime we have a shape that involves strings 3 and 2 together at the same time, the shape is going to change a little bit. And that's why players like Tom Quayle use perfect fourths tuning. All the strings are tuned in perfect fourths. It's very symmetrical, very logical, in a visual way. But we are tuned in standard tuning, so anytime we have a perfect fifth involving strings 3 and 2 together at the same time, the shape is going to change a little bit. That's why we have 2 shapes. The first shape, I can play it anywhere I want, except on the 3rd string, because it's going to involve strings 3 and 2. That shape is, let's play one right here, for example, on the 6th string, 5th fret. That's our root. And then we have a perfect fifth on the next string, 2 frets higher, 7th fret. That's our shape, very commonly used shape. So we can play that anywhere we want. It's always going to be a perfect fifth, any string, any fret. Except strings 3 and 2, now that shape is going to become this shape. So if I'm building a power chord on the 3rd string, 5th fret, my 5th is no longer going to be 2 frets higher on the next string, but 3 frets higher. So we'll have that shape. All right, so that being said, those 2 shapes are going to be used to create those musical landscapes that we've been talking about and that I used in the beginning here. Okay, now we can either approach this in a single key, Ionian, for example, Dorian, Phrygian, it doesn't matter, or we could just use our ears and explore different things. We're going to start by approaching it the Ionian way. Our bass is going to be E. I'm going to use my thumb here. It could be anything I want, but I'm going to use E for this. And we're going to start building some power chords from Ionian. So Ionian is a perfect 5th. So I need another E here, and I have an E, for example, on the 5th string, 5th fret. That's an E. So from there, I could use the first shape because it doesn't involve strings 3 and 2 together. So that first shape with the bass of E here would sound like this. Am I an Ionian? Yes, because Ionian has a perfect 5th. That note is E, therefore we're an Ionian. That works. Ionian, Dorian, that's also a perfect 5th. After that we have Phrygian, perfect 5th. Then we have Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian. Locrian, I can't play that because it doesn't have a perfect 5th. So I'm going to skip that. So we have 6 fifths that I can use there. Okay? All right, now, of course, you need to know the order of these notes. That's the topic of a different lesson, and I've got a lot here on this channel, but that's the basic rule. So this lesson comes with a free PDF. I'll tell you more about it later, but I listed the 7 modes, and within these 7 modes, I listed all the possible notes across all the fretboard. I wrote them in E to make things simple, so you can keep that low E string open as a bass. And there's only one note that is colored within these 7 shapes on the PDF, and that's the note you need to avoid building a perfect 5th from. And the interesting thing is that if you list the Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, and so forth in order, so Ionian would be the first one, Dorian 2, Phrygian 3, and so forth, you'll notice that for Ionian, the note to avoid is 7, which is the last one. So in the first mode, you have the last note to avoid. The second note, Dorian, you no longer have the 7th note to avoid, but the 6th. So it decreases. Phrygian, 5. Lydian, 4, and so forth. Just a cool little interesting thing there. But that's the idea. So now if I ask you to use those fifths in Dorian, for example, you need to follow your order. Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian, which is to be avoided. Ionian, you could do that. Starting in E Dorian, that's a perfect 5th. E Phrygian, E Lydian, E Mixolydian, E Aeolian. We're going to avoid Locrian, go to Ionian, and so forth. All right? So that's in a modal context, in a single key. But we can do something more interesting, and that's forget about the theory. I just wanted to show you why I started using those fifths. But forget about the theory. Use an open string bass to start with. E is a good starting point. And play a fifth anywhere you want and hear how it sounds. Use your ears there. And that creates a canvas. If you hit a fifth you don't really like, just avoid it. But they're all going to work. They're all going to color your musical canvas in a certain way. And then you can start experimenting with different basses. Maybe an A instead of the low E string. You got the fifth string open, which is A. And you can experiment with that too. And then change that bass. Just remember that if you start a perfect fifth, a power chord from the third string, the shape's going to change. Then you can use your thumb to add different basses. For example, if we had something like this here, a power chord right here, starting on the 2nd fret of the 4th string, low E string, maybe our thumb can try and see what happens to hit fret number 3, different bass. Now this power chord is no longer attracted to this note, but to this. That sounds cool. Just experiment. Do you like it? Yes? Keep it. No? Zap it. Now you can embellish that with some melodic passages, of course. If you start to hear that, all right, this sounds kind of minor. I'm in E minor something. Maybe complement that, embellish it with pentatonic passages. And the more you do that, the more you're going to have a feel for some of these power chords, and you're going to be able to reuse them in your own musical adventures, whether you're playing alone like I am here, or with other people. You're going to start to feel when you can use those power chords. That's what I have for you. Explore. Be creative, see what comes up, and use your ears all the time. That's the most important tool you have. It's not your fingers, it's not your guitar, it's your ears. Your ears are going to influence and affect the outcome of the music. Music should not be generated by just your fingers moving. If you do, it might sound okay, but at some point you're going to be frustrated and you're going to feel that all your improvs just kind of sound the same all the time. We've heard this so many times. That has its use, but it's not very personal. I prepared for you a free visual aid in PDF format. This PDF will list the 7 church modes: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. And you'll see them on the full fretboard. I listed them in E. And within each of these 7 modes, one note is highlighted. That's the note that you need to avoid. In other words, from that note, you cannot play a perfect fifth. From all the other notes, you can. You can download that for free. Just visit the link below, enter your best email address, and I'll be sending you that PDF right away. And if this was your first visit on this channel, thanks for checking it out. You should consider subscribing because I have 3 videos coming every single week. Videos like this one, helping guitar players like you find your voice on the instrument, develop it to tell your own personal musical story. No one can play the way you play. Let's do this. I'll see you next time.